Okay. Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this week's online communist forum. This is the first online communist forum we've had for about 3 weeks. We had a period where we took a break following our communist university, which was organised by the Communist Party of Great Britain, talking about socialism, and also comrades from Prometheus, the online magazine. So it's great to be back. This evening, Jack Conrad will cover the Alaska Conference, current situation in Israel-Palestine, developments in the Democratic Socialists of America, and finally picking up on your party. Just briefly before I bring Jack in, for those of you who missed any of Communist University, you missed a very interesting series of debates and discussions, all of which are available on YouTube, and I believe someone will be posting a link to the YouTube channel in the chat for this online communist forum. So thank you very much. Welcome to this evening, and I'll hand over to Jack.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I'm going to begin with Trump and Putin, and I don't know. It's very hard to judge, what happened, what's going on, why, because we weren't in the room. That's the first obvious point to make. There were translators, no press, no one else. So a lot of speculation, but also in that sense, we get an awful lot of spin. And the BBC story is basically, the subtext is that Trump is an idiot. Putin, plays him, magnificently. And European leaders will be well advised to sort of flatter Trump and how should I put it, further boost his ego in order to save poor old Ukraine. That's the sort of story that we get. My own version of things is really to stress both the difference between Trump and Biden, but also the continuity between these administrations. I think it's reasonably safe to say that no meetings would have happened if the sort of moron Biden had won the presidential election. He called for the overthrow of Putin. So I don't think that we would have seen an Alaska. On the other hand, if you look, at least from what we know, was on the table, it seems to me at least that Trump is prepared to recognize to some degree or another the facts on the ground. Maybe he's prepared to make further concessions when it comes to Russia annexing territory. So, for example, perhaps Crimea, perhaps the Donbass, perhaps an arrangement about the South. But notice, at least if I'm right, what that goes hand in hand with. And it seems to go hand in hand with European NATO powers actually sending troops to Ukraine, and the United States providing some sort of security guarantee. And if you're not the BBC, if you're in Moscow, if you're in the Kremlin, what does that look like? Well, yeah, you could call it a victory. On the other hand, you could also call it a stunning strategic reversal, because what you've seen is the extension of NATO with the incorporation of countries such as Sweden and Finland, and also in that sense, at least for 80% potentially of Ukraine, the semi-absorption of that country into NATO, de facto incorporation of the rump, the 80% of Ukraine into NATO. And that doesn't look like a stunning victory. It actually looks like a Pyrrhic victory. And my take on it is that if Putin agreed such a thing, voices would be raised within the FSB, the security service, saying that Putin has actually presided over a Russian defeat. I certainly don't buy and never have the idea that first Ukraine and then Eastern Europe. I mean, if we look at what's happened in Ukraine, it's been a disaster for Russia. When the idea of a Russian invasion was first mooted, I must admit myself, I didn't expect it. Why? Because they didn't have enough troops. And while I was perfectly open to the idea of perhaps they have enough troops to capture the capital, Kiev, when they didn't capture Kiev, and when you quickly went into, instead of what my expectation was, rapid movement, tank warfare, the sort of battles, the sort of war we saw on the Eastern Front, in World War II, and we didn't have that. Instead, what we had is something much more resembling the Western Front in World War One. My take on that was really the same as the initial German attempt to roll back France, knock it out the war, and force Britain to sue. Once that didn't work, Germany had lost. And my assessment, in spite of a village here and a village there, and big problems, real problems with recruitment to the Ukrainian army, desertion, and all the rest of it, nonetheless, if we look at Russia, unless we see a collapse on the Ukrainian side, it's bogged down in a stalemate. And I think that suits American strategy, because at least my reading of American strategy, going back not just to the Biden administration, but before the Biden administration, basically is to lock Europe into a conflict with Russia. Meanwhile, America can tackle its real enemy, which is China. And so if Russia is locked in to a protracted war, or a neither war nor peace situation, or a peace situation of where you have European NATO powers on the doorstep of Russia, that is a fulfillment of American plans. And indeed, as I've indicated, to me, if Putin agreed to such a scenario, i.e. land for peace, but with NATO peacekeepers, I see every likelihood of Putin, who's not getting any younger, being overthrown. And perhaps the American plan to break up the Russian Federation. Either way, look at it from an American point of view, and what you've got is, I think, bar Spain, more or less across the board, what you've got is pledges to up so-called defense spending, arms spending, and the majority of that arms spending, of course, will go to American firms. So America has generously agreed to keep supplying Ukraine with arms that Europe pays for. So from my angle, at least the way I look at it, it's a win-win situation as far as the United States is concerned. I don't buy the idea that it's America that's losing, this strategic game. I'm actually of the view at the moment of an opposite view. Okay, so What we've got in Alaska, is a moral victory of sorts, I suppose. That's how it's played on the BBC. For Putin, he was given the red carpet treatment. Nothing from what we understand was agreed, and what we have is the pledge to keep talking. Meanwhile, we'll have negotiations between Trump and the Americans and the European powers. Okay, moving over to the Middle East, just to look at the situation in Palestine. I think we all would agree that it's extraordinarily grim. And, I mean, words almost fail me, I have to say. We've had the airdropping of supplies, which make no difference. I suspect they make good TV. Inevitably, someone gets killed, and we've seen the film of some poor little boy. What do you expect? There you are, you've got the world's largest open air prison. People are starving. You drop huge crates of supplies. What do you expect as they're coming down? People rush to get hold of food. And inevitably, with a gust of wind this way, a gust of wind that way, people are crushed, either in the rush to get there or actually by the aid itself. So aid, I'm not saying on any mass scale, but aid itself as some sort of act of performance becomes a killer as far as the Palestinians are concerned. Meanwhile, what we have is Israel proceeding, preparations for ethnic cleansing of the Palestinians. There's talk of, a Nakba that sends people not to Egypt, not to Jordan, which would be easy to arrange, but somewhere like Somaliland and even South Sudan, God help us, has been mentioned. And there one presumes, well, at least in South Sudan, one presumes that the UN would step in to make sure people got fed. But what Israel appears to be doing there, is preparing the ground for such an action. And meanwhile, we have a similar process, not as advanced, obviously, but a similar process going on in the West Bank. Every day, another killing. So it's clear what's going on, and it's clear that what is going on is speeding up. So, in terms of the gesture politics that European powers, are appearing to be prepared for, i.e. the recognition of a Palestinian state, Israel is using that as its spur in order to actually eliminate the Palestinian people. So you recognize a Palestinian state, but there's a Palestine with no Palestinians in it. That's what Israel seems to be going out to achieve. And to illustrate that, we've had the proposal to build, 3,000 more settlements on the West Bank, Plan E1, which effectively splits the West Bank in two. And we also have, again, as sort of performance politics, we have Ben-Gvir visiting Baghuti in prison, just to illustrate the contempt that Israel has for the Palestinian people. So yes, you could get a situation where Britain, France, Germany recognize a Palestinian state. We need to recognize that while that is a diplomatic blow as far as Israel will be is concerned, the fact of the matter is that it's a gesture, and it's a gesture that we should not ignore. This is a victory for us. This is about popular protest. This is about popular pressure. But in real terms, it means nothing. And we need to understand, while it's correct to talk about boycott, while it's correct to demand that governments, cease all arms trade with Israel, we need to recognize the simple fact that Israel is armed by the United States. And if you really want to, save the Palestinians, you have to tackle the United States. It's not simply Israel. It's not simply right-wing ministers in the Israeli government. This is US foreign policy that's being played out. Okay, and just on that, I thought it was worthwhile mentioning, I haven't read a full account of the convention of the DSA, Democratic Socialists of America, but I was reading reports that the DSA has agreed to bar from membership Zionists, and this includes the sort of liberal Zionists of J Street. These are people that support a two-state solution. If you look at their website, as I've just done, very mainstream. So obviously on their left, you've got people in the DSA, and the DSA has voted that the membership of such an organization is incompatible with membership of the DSA. I fully support that. That's a correct move to make. We are very much in favor of drawing clear lines of division. And that is something that we also ought to be demanding of the SWP's front organization, Stand Up to Racism. It's just amazing that when it comes to Tommy Robinson, the SWP appears to view people who support a genocidal project, which is what Israel is, going back to its very origins, seem to view these people as legitimate allies. They're not. These people ought to be barred. Whatever their professions of humanity, whatever their claims, we support a two-state solution. The reality is, if you support Israel, if you support the Zionist project of Israel, you're supporting a genocidal project, because what we're dealing with here is a political economy of exclusion. And that goes back, to Herzl, the Jewish state. It's not just Netanyahu, it's Labour Zionism, it's Zionism as a project. So we welcome that decision by the DSA. It strengthens the DSA. It doesn't weaken the DSA. It also throws down a gauntlet to Bernie Sanders, who isn't a member of the DSA, but also AOC. What side are you going to choose on this one? So we want a situation of where those who are elected with the support of the DSA become accountable to the DSA. So hopefully we'll have in the near future, maybe next week, comrades from the US talking to Online Communist Forum and giving a report of the convention and what victories or defeats the comrades suffered. But that is a positive development as far as we are concerned. And also, almost needlessly to say, we also consider the call at last from Jeremy Corbyn to establish whatever the hell it's called, your party, the Left Party, the New Left Party, the JCP, Jeremy Corbyn Party, I think at the moment is an accurate description. I'm sure it will end up with some sort of name eventually that we can all agree to call it, but 700,000 people signing up plus is an incredible development. And really what it represents those very people that month after month have marched in London and in other cities week after week, campaigning for the Palestinian cause. You know, it's something I've remarked on repeatedly. I think I've been on all the demonstrations bar one, and they've all been huge in London. And you look at those demonstrations and we all make the same point. It's not that we decry street demonstrations. I mean, no one would do that on the left who is a genuine leftist. But when you see the claim for the last demonstration, 300,000 people. Well, what's happening now is those 300,000 people plus 400,000 others are being organized into a potential party. And that is a huge development. And it gives the left not just a opportunity. Too many comrades are looking at this as, oh, here's our chance to recruit some new members. No, it also, I can't remember, wasn't it in Spider-Man? You know, with great power comes responsibility. Well, we don't have great power, but we have responsibility for this. And so what I thought I would do, I mean, I haven't sort of, you know, I've not come here with a fully developed program for the JCP. That can wait. We're not impatient. But certainly in terms of discussions on the PCC, what I wanted to do really is open up, both in our own ranks, but also on the left in general, how we should approach this mass movement, this potential mass party that we've seen created really by the crisis in Palestine, but also the failure of the Jeremy Corbyn leadership of the Labour Party. We've got these two opposites going on. People have joined this or signed up for it because of Jeremy Corbyn. On the other hand, we have seen what happened when Jeremy Corbyn unexpectedly, at least before the idiots, you know, the MPs, the morons, temporarily lent him their support to get him on the ballot. We saw what happened to the left. It was a disaster for the left. We saw hundreds, thousands of people purged under Corbyn's leadership. We saw friends of Corbyn thrown under the bus. And of course, we saw a disastrous defeat for Corbyn's Labour Party and a disastrous defeat for Corbyn's chosen candidate to replace him. And of course, Keir Starmer, and the rest is history. Okay, what I thought I would do, just to, you know, but, you know, as a sort of critique, as a illustration of the challenge that we face, is just look at what some other comrades on the left are saying and what their approach is. And of course, you know, some of it's positive and some of it is negative. So, for example, I've been reading Socialist Worker, but not just Socialist Worker. I've also been looking at party notes, the internal bulletin, you know, from the centre to the SWP membership. And quite rightly, the comrades are saying, you know, join. I don't think we need to make that call. 700,000 people have already done it. You know, I'm sure more will, but so we don't need to say, hey, join the JCP. That just goes without saying. But what the comrades in the SWP have also been saying, and people have been doing it, and not just SWPs, is don't wait for Jeremy, don't wait for this mysterious, shadowy leadership. It consists of who knows who. Set up branches locally, go and do it. And what we've seen is in all sorts of different localities, groups coming together on the basis of, you know, posting on social media and all sorts of, you know, personal contacts, one person and the other, old Labour Party comrades. We've seen meetings. And if the SWP hasn't called them, what we get is the SWP getting up and say, oh, where are ordinary people? The code for that is what they're really saying when they say that is, where are the naives that we can recruit? Instead of the naives, what we've got is other comrades on the left And we don't want to argue with you lot. We want people that we can get into our ranks. So with the SWP, they're right to say, get in there, set up branches. Okay, get your message from Jeremy if you can, Andrew Feinstein if you can, whoever. Get some official stamp of approval if you can, but if you can't, go ahead. But what we would be saying is you can go further. Why stop at just forming a branch? In London, why don't we actually have delegates going to a London meeting? In Scotland, we ought to have a Scotland meeting. In Yorkshire, we need a Yorkshire meeting. Why not a South Yorkshire meeting? Why not a national meeting? Why don't we send delegates to a national meeting? Why don't we actually build the party before the November conference? Because if we wait for the November conference, everything tells me, at least at the moment, is what we're going to get is something pretty damned awful. And what I'm thinking of, I don't know this, I just fear it. But we've got the example of Momentum and how the democracy of Momentum was gutted, not just by John Lansman, but with the blessing of John McDonnell, Diane Abbott, and behind them, of course, Jeremy Corbyn. And what we ended up with is some sort of referendum organization that gives enormous power to those that ask the question, and enormous possibilities of gerrymandering. And of course, Momentum ran out of all momentum, no pun, and just became a voting machine that's, well, at the moment under Keir Starmer, is increasingly ineffective. So that is a danger. And as I said, there's no reason simply to wait for that. Of course, we have to look and we have to weigh up the actual situation when whoever is responsible, for calling a conference, calls a conference, but we can actually create facts on the ground before that. And we can not only create facts on the ground before that in our particular localities, we can also take the initiative, get people together. And undoubtedly, to begin with, my expectation would be that the chances are that such a get together, both locally, but also regionally and nationally, will be dominated by the existing left. And to me, I take a view that the left are both part of the problem, but they're also part of the answer. And from our angle, we look at the activists on the left, we look at, people with experience on the left, and they're incredibly, culturally dumbed down by their own organization. But we need these people and we need to transform these people. And here's a possibility of where that can happen, of where we can get the SWP in the same room with the comrades from Spew, with the comrades from the RCP, with the comrades from the CPGB, and we can work together and we can build something together. Now, the problem that we've got is, okay, so what do we want to build? And again, reading party notes, reading Socialist Worker, unfortunately, at least my impression is that the SWP's still got in its head something like, we demand change. I mean, for God's sake. So what we've got is still a description of an umbrella organization with some minimal, we support Palestine or something like that, of where individual candidates, i.e. people in the SWP, can go further. What they want is something loose. What they want is something amorphous. What they want is a sea to swim in, where they can pick up recruits. And unfortunately, what we have in terms of other organizations isn't anything fundamentally different. So, for example, while it took them some time to play catch up with reality, at last we've got movement from Spew and Tusk And we've gone from a situation where Clive Heemskirk has generously turned to Jeremy Corbyn and said, you can have the Tusk moniker. We'll give it to you for free. I don't know whether he actually got a reply. But now we've got Spew going, okay, get in there. But what are they fighting for? They're fighting for delegates from trade union branches. In and of itself, no bad thing. But we know what they've got in mind. They've got in mind a Labour Party, Mark II. They've got in mind winning over Unison, winning over Unite, winning over the GMB. Well, if you succeeded in doing that, at least in terms of, with the politics of the current leadership of such unions, if they, had a brainstorm and disaffiliated from Labour, or maybe Sir Keir Starmer, cuts the link. I don't see that actually happening. But imagine for one moment if that dream was fulfilled. What would happen when it came to the JCP's view of Ukraine, or the JCP's view of boycotting arms supplies to Israel? What would Sharon Graham make of that? Everything we hear so far is she thinks that what is crucial is keeping, Unite members' jobs supplying parts for F-35s. It would be a disaster if Spew's strategy worked out. And, even with a new union leadership, we've still got the social phenomenon of trade union bureaucrats. And so, a Labour Party Mark II, if it could be brought into existence, the reality is that what it would do is simply rerun the Labour Party Mark I, famously, in the words of Marx, of course, first time tragedy, second time farce. I think that's a safe thing to say. On the other hand, what we've also got on the left, again, no surprise, is those comrades who instead of taking my view, on the one hand this, on the one hand that, look at the existing left groups and simply say bad. There is a bad side to the existing left. There's no doubt about that. But instead of looking at the existing left as being part of the answer, they simply look at the existing left and say, it's the problem. And so we're getting, circulated, we're seeing the concoction of various schemas to deal with the left. I haven't read his article. I'll get around to it. If anyone has, maybe you can say I'm getting him wrong. But Comrade Tony Greenstein, for example, has made the call, to keep out the organized left. I wonder if that includes Tony Greenstein, because isn't he a member of the Independent Socialist Network or something like that? And who's to decide, or is it just the SWP that's to be kept out? Is it just Spew? Who's going to be the witch finder here? I can certainly remember the formation of Arthur Scargill's Socialist Labour Party. And on the door of that conference, there were there were members of this thing called FISC, Fourth International Supporters Caucus. And they were asking people as they came in, believe it or not, you're crazy. Are you a member of the CPGB? We instructed our comrades to do that terrible thing, lie. We did have one comrade who couldn't lie and said, yeah. And they said, fuck off. Why the obsession with the CPGB? I don't know. Either way, the SLP began on day one with a witch hunt and carried on degenerating because of that witch hunt. And it ended up with that farcical vote. Again, I think it was in the Camden Centre, from my memory, of where Scargill cast his 400 block vote and it disappeared. Wasn't that Andy Newman doing the business there? Anyway, this is all ancient history. The point I'm really making here is that we don't want to bar the SWP. We want the SWP in. We want the leadership in. We want the rank and file in. We want to work with these comrades. We want to argue with these comrades, and we want to come to agreements with these comrades. And of course, yes, that involves factional struggles. But if you don't have factional struggles, what you actually end up with is the leadership operating as a faction and dominating the thing. and allowing no political development of those below, unless you're talking about careerists. So yes, the left is, a mixed bag, but the last thing we should do is to fight to keep the left out, because that would involve witch hunting, and that is definitely not the atmosphere that we want to encourage. On the other hand, we've also got various other schemers that are designed, basically, what do we do about the existing left? Well, here's a good idea. What's it called? Sortition, jury system. So what you do is choose, your conference, your founding conference, maybe subsequent conferences, on the basis of, I don't know whether it will be 100, would it be 1,000 comrades randomly chosen, and they decide the name, they decide the policy. What you guarantee with that would be some comrades on the left, I suspect, depending on how big the pool is, but the idea is wrong, because the aim is clearly, the result is inevitably you get average political consciousness. You don't get the most advanced thinkers who are chosen and recallable by the left, the ones that the branches trust. Yes, sometimes you get big mouths, sometimes you'll get block votes, but no, trusting to the good old-fashioned election of delegates, the recallability of delegates, the right to form factions, the right of factions to dominate if they've got a majority. Yes, we need potentially to come to an agreement for some sort of PR. That's legitimate, but majorities have rights. And I'm quite prepared to accept a minority position. Maybe we couldn't accept anything else. But no, we want to be in the position of where we can fight to become a majority. And that has the potential of raising consciousness. That has the potential of testing out different platforms, and precisely the education of this mass, this 700,000 mass, where if you treat them as children, if you say that the left somehow must be excluded by this method or that method, what you guarantee is the sort of failure that I've already described with momentum. So you do not only have individuals coming up with particular schemas on those lines. We also have, I suppose, no surprise, social chauvinist organization, anti-capitalist resistance, also worrying along such lines. How do we keep out the RCP, the crazy sectarian RCP, because they are going to join or have joined this RCP on the basis that they're going to fight for their own program. Well, what a terrible thing that is. I mean, can you believe it that communists, okay, they haven't got my program, I haven't got their program, but they want to fight for their program. What on earth is wrong with that? And comrades from the ACI have also raised, how do you keep out those that will raise, and we will, the question of the people's militia, that featured in the Labour Party 1900 manifesto that was considered unproblematic, not only by the Second International, but by all Democrats, in the 19th and 18th century. How do we stop them? Well, we can't have, the argument they're coming up with at the moment, at least, is, well, we can't have a witch hunt. We don't want a witch hunt. But what we can have is speech controls, which is a witch hunt in any other name. So we stop people raising these questions. How are you going to do that? We're going to insist on sensible language. Well, I'm I'm a certified crazy for that, as far as they're concerned. So I don't know. Do they pass a resolution barring Jack Conrad? Do they pass a resolution barring the CP? It amounts to a witch hunt. So they have some sort of formula that stop people raising extremist demands. And these are the people, by the way, that support NATO. These are the people that go on marches in London shouting, arm, arm, arm Ukraine. No, we actually want to follow the example, in my opinion, when it comes to ACR, not because they're on the left, but because they're pro-capitalist, they're pro-NATO. We want to pass a resolution along the lines of the DSA, not only barring Zionists, but also barring those that support our own side in the Ukraine war. And at the moment, that not only includes ACR and the Ukraine Solidarity campaign, it includes John McDonnell. I'm told by those who are speaking to him at the last demonstration in London that he's weighing his options. I mean, will he be allowed back in the Labour Party? He doesn't know. So he's looking at the JCP. Well, okay, let him look and let him come in, but on the basis of adopting principled politics. So any party worth its salt, of course, has got to draw lines of demarcation. But from our angle, what we want is to draw lines of demarcation against open class traitors. That's what we're saying, about people like the AWL. That's what we're saying about organizations such as anti-capitalist resistance, what we used to call in Left Unity resisting socialism, which was their role in that organization. And again, just to sort of wrap things up a bit, worth noting other articles that maybe are surprising, but do tell you a great deal. I think I've mentioned it before in my own circle, that John Rees has been writing on the JCP in Counterfire. And he came up with an article that was saying, we don't want a rerun of the Labour Party. We don't want a Labour Party Mark II. And when I read that, I went, oh, that's really good. That makes a change. And we had I think I actually wrote it on our e-caucus. That's good. And we had another comrade who wrote on our e-caucus. He said, no, it's the same old stuff. And I was going, what? Anyway, what the comrade, we sort of cross messages. The comrade was basically saying that sounded like Jack Conrad when we were talking about the Socialist Alliance, when we were talking about respect, because in those days when John Rees was in charge, not only of the SWP, he was the effective leader of the Socialist Alliance. He was the effective leader alongside George Galloway of Respect. That's exactly what he was arguing for. And SWPers were told to present themselves as old Labour. This was the message, that the SWP would bring to Socialist Alliance conferences. We don't talk for the people in this hall. We talk for the millions out there. So this is a change on behalf of John Rees, a welcome change. Of course, he's still got his streets and strikes, Cliffite baggage. We shouldn't expect anything else. But what it shows, maybe it shows movement. That's to be welcome. But also what it shows is that movement can happen precisely under conditions where counterfire, instead of being inside the tent, find themselves on the outside of the tent. Clearly, they're not part of the inner core that's deciding what this JCP party is going to, stand for politically, how it's going to be structured, how you run the founding conference. And hence, we see a shift to the left. And again, what that shows is that what is fixed at the moment, under conditions of the JCP, under conditions that you get together locally, under the conditions that you get together regionally and nationally, we can see all sorts of change happening in the existing left. So while I'm well aware that the left is part of the problem, I'm also insisting that the left is also part of the answer. And we certainly look forward to working with all manner of different comrades who we might not have thought, as natural allies in the past. So The slogan, I think, for the moment is certainly don't wait for November, and don't just limit things to local get-togethers and the call that will come. We actually need to get together. We need to make the party now. That's the message that we want to get over. So no passivity, no waiting for Jeremy Corbyn, no waiting for shadowy committees, no truck with this scheme or that schemer to keep the left out. Get the left together. Let's have arguments. Let's have joint action, and we'll see what happens. There's a great deal that can be done. There's a great deal that can be gained if there's the imagination there. And okay, that's a big ask for the existing left, but we are eternally optimistic, both about our class, but also about our left-wing comrades. So what are we aiming for? We're aiming for a party, yes, not a broad front party, not a Labour Party Mark II. We're aiming for a mass communist party. We don't think we're going to win on day one. We don't expect to win in, a year's time. But that's a struggle that we want to conduct. Why? Because that is the answer to the crisis that humanity faces when it comes to the climate, when it comes to the threat of war, between NATO and Russia, but crucially, the threat of war between the United States and China. A broad front party, a Jeremy Corbyn party, isn't going to meet that challenge. A mass communist party that finds inspiration and links abroad, we have a chance with such an organization. So to use the old phrase, seize the time.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Jack. Just very quickly, if you wish to make a contribution or raise any questions, you can make use of the chat. I see comrades have already been exchanging ideas there. Also, if you wish to make your intervention verbally, you'll find the raise hand icon underneath reactions in your Zoom window. Before I open it up to contributions from the floor, I will just quickly provide you with a correction, Jack. The votes that Scargill was able to wield in the Socialist Labour Party, courtesy of the Northwest Cheshire and Cumbria Miners Association, were about 3,000 or 4,000, I think, not 400. But yes, I think he used it when he wanted. Okay, with that said, I will open it up to contributions from the floor. Any takers? Jim Nelson.
Yes, since nobody else has jumped in. In discussing with friends about Ukraine, it's a widespread thing, that it was Putin was unprovoked, bloody nonsense. But it's there in the mainstream press, mainstream media, and a lot of people that I talk to. And a large extent, it's ignorance of history. I'd say you can go back. Of course, you can go back to the not an inch when